At 5:23 p.m. local time, a U.S. Air Force F-16 Fighting Falcon from the 421st Fighter Squadron was flying top cover for a U.S. Navy task force moving along the Yemeni coastline. The American warships were conducting a patrol in the region, an increasingly tense waterway where both commercial and military vessels have been targeted in recent months. For most of the day, the skies had been quiet. The F-16 pilots scanned the horizon, expecting nothing more than a routine escort mission. But within seconds, the calm was shattered. Unbeknownst to the pilot, a Houthi surface-to-air missile battery positioned near Hoda had locked onto his aircraft. Operators on the ground had just launched an SA-6 missile, a Soviet-era weapon still capable of threatening modern aircraft when employed correctly. With a maximum range of 23 kilometers and a top speed approaching Mach 2.8, the SA-6 gave the pilot mere seconds to react. The odds looked grim, but the F-16 is far from defenseless. The aircraft's first line of defense came from its advanced AN/APG-83 radar mounted in the nose. More than just a sensor for tracking enemy aircraft, the radar also acts as an early warning system against missile threats. At roughly 42 kilometers out, the radar detected the hostile launch and immediately alerted the pilot. Responding instinctively, the aviator executed a steep dive, dropping from 30,000 feet to 15,000 in an attempt to throw off the missile's guidance system. Because the SA-6 relies on semi-active radar homing, it requires ground radar to illuminate the target until the missile's onboard seeker can lock on during the terminal phase. The sudden altitude change was designed to break this fire control solution. For a moment, it seemed to work, but more missiles were already on the way. The Houthis had unleashed a volley. The F-16's radar, with its ability to track multiple targets at once, picked up the additional launches. But there was a problem. Evasive maneuvers, sharp dives, and banking turns made it harder for the radar to maintain reliable tracking, especially at extreme angles off the nose. At one point, the aircraft was effectively blind to part of the incoming threat. This is where the next layer of defense came into play. Mounted under the F-16's wings were thermopylon integrated dispensing systems, PIDs, each weighing about 19 kilograms. Though the pods slightly reduced the jet's overall weapons load, they were invaluable in a crisis like this. Outfitted with Hensed AR-60V2 ultraviolet sensors, the PIDs could detect missile launches up to 10 kilometers away, covering the fighter in a protective electronic sphere. As soon as the system registered the SA-6's closing in, it automatically deployed a mix of countermeasures, 12 MJU-50B infrared flares and 24 RR-180 chaff bundles. The result was a half-kilometer-wide cloud of false targets designed to confuse both radar and infrared seekers. The sky behind the F-16 lit up with burning magnesium flares and shimmering strips of reflective chaff, a dazzling shield meant to lure the missiles away. But the Houthis' weapons continued pressing forward. The pilot still had one final tool. Slung beneath the belly of the jet was the AN/ALQ-184 electronic jamming pod, one of the most effective countermeasure systems in the U.S. arsenal. Unlike flares or chaff, which create physical decoys, the jamming pod directly attacks the enemy's radar with powerful bursts of electronic noise. Using digital radio frequency memory technology, the pod can mimic and then disrupt radar signals across a broad range, from 2 to 20 gigahertz. Since the SA-6 relies on a fire control radar operating between 6 and 8 gigahertz, the system was well within its kill zone. With a flick of a switch, the pilot activated the jammer. Almost instantly, the connection between the incoming missiles and their ground-based guidance was severed. Deprived of accurate targeting data, the missiles veered off course. Their once deadly precision collapsed into chaos. Several plummeted into the sea, while others streaked harmlessly past the diving Falcon. In the span of seconds, what had begun as a potentially catastrophic ambush had turned into a one-sided demonstration of American electronic warfare dominance. Analysts later estimated that the jammer reduced the missile's accuracy by at least 70%, turning the attack into little more than a waste of costly munitions. Yet while the immediate danger was over, the engagement served as a stark reminder. The Houthis, armed with older but still potent Soviet-designed systems, remained willing to challenge the most advanced aircraft in the world. Their attempt to hit a U.S. Navy-escorted fighter jet underscored both their audacity and their growing confidence in employing long-range weapons along the Yemeni coast. For the U.S., the incident was also a live demonstration of layered defense: radar warning, evasive flying, expendable countermeasures, and electronic warfare all working together in seamless fashion. By the time the F-16 leveled off and rejoined its patrol over the Navy task force, the skies were once again quiet. But the message was clear: while the Houthis may continue launching their missiles, going head-to-head with U.S. Navy-escorted fighters remains a very big mistake. At 6:07 p.m. local time, just 44 minutes after the attempted ambush on the U.S. F-16, a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone lifted off from Chabeli airfield in Djibouti and began a reconnaissance sweep roughly 50 miles northeast of Hoda. Its mission was to track Houthi supply convoys as they pushed reinforcements toward contested positions near the town. What was expected to be a routine intelligence-gathering flight quickly turned dangerous when frustrated Houthi gunners, still smarting from their failed attempt to down the Falcon, decided to try again. Although the MQ-9 lacks the speed and agility of a manned fighter, it is far from defenseless. Its Pandora missile warning system immediately picked up the launch of another Houthi SA-6 surface-to-air missile. The system gave the remote operators just seconds to react. Within 8 seconds of detection, the Reaper activated its AN-AL-47 countermeasure dispenser while climbing above 15,000 feet. This maneuver was critical. The SA-6 is most effective when targets remain in its radar cutouts directly beneath the horizon. By ascending rapidly, the drone reduced the missile's effectiveness. The Reaper's countermeasures deployed in sequence. In only 4 seconds, the AL system launched 8 infrared flares, filling the sky with burning decoys. At the same time, a dense 300-square-meter chaff cloud was dispersed to confuse the missile's radar guidance. While effective, these systems have strict limits. The MQ-9 carries 60 MJU-60B flares and 120 RR-180 chaff bundles, sufficient for about 12 defensive engagements. Once 75% of that inventory is expended, the mission must be aborted and the drone ordered back to base. Helping the operators decide when to deploy countermeasures is the ALR-69 radar warning receiver. This system can scan frequencies from 0.5 to 20 GHz, enabling it to detect SA-6 fire control radars at ranges up to 200 kilometers. Even more importantly, it does so with 1 degree of azimuth accuracy, allowing countermeasures to be launched within 2 seconds of a confirmed lock-on. Thanks to this detection and response cycle, the MQ-9 survived the missile barrage. Still, the drone did not escape unscathed. After completing its mission and returning to Djibouti, ground crews discovered multiple punctures in the right wing caused by steel fragments from the SA-6's warhead. Each missile of this type carries roughly 12,000 pellets. A handful struck the Reaper, causing minor damage but not enough to ground it. Within days, the drone was back in the air. The incident underscored both the resilience of American unmanned systems and the increasing boldness of Houthi forces. This attack was not just another engagement. It marked the first time Houthis had directly targeted a manned U.S. aircraft during the conflict. Even though the Reaper itself is unmanned, the escalation was clear. In Washington, both U.S. Central Command and the White House viewed the back-to-back missile launches as a brazen provocation. Within hours, President Trump authorized a decisive military response. At 2:00 a.m. local time, barely 8 hours after the Reaper incident, the guided missile destroyer USS Spruance was ordered to close within striking distance of the Yemeni coast. Once inside its designated launch box, encrypted orders from Central Command gave the green light to strike. Rather than employ Tomahawk cruise missiles, the Navy opted for something different: the SM-6, one of the most advanced air defense missiles in its arsenal. Each Arleigh Burke-class destroyer carries a mixed loadout of weapons inside its vertical launch system: Tomahawks for land attack, SM-2s and ESSMs for air defense, ASROCs for anti-submarine warfare, and SM-3s for ballistic missile defense. The SM-6 stands near the top of that hierarchy. Designed to intercept aircraft and cruise missiles at speeds of Mach 3.5, it can deliver a 1,500-kilogram warhead with pinpoint accuracy. In recent years, the Navy has repurposed the SM-6 for land attack missions. Faster than the Tomahawk and harder to intercept, the missile offers a powerful tool for rapid retaliation. By choosing the SM-6, the Navy sent a clear and deliberate message. This was not just a defensive strike, it was a demonstration of flexibility and overwhelming firepower. The Houthis had gambled by firing on American aircraft twice in a single evening. The U.S. Navy's response, delivered at hypersonic speed, made one thing abundantly clear: such provocations would come at a steep and immediate price. Writing. Despite having this capability for years, the U.S. Navy had never publicly fired an SM-6 missile in a land attack role, until now. The choice was deliberate. Satellite imagery showed that the Houthi SA-6 launcher and its IS-91 radar were still near Hoda, but with a top speed of about 34 mph, the mobile system could vanish within hours. Time was critical. Once the order came down from CENTCOM, the crew of the USS Spruance made best speed to its launch basket in the southern Red Sea. Combat Watch standards had less than 30 minutes to create, route, and approve a firing plan. A missile cannot simply fly in a straight line. It must be guided through a series of pre-programmed waypoints to avoid interception. After the planning was complete, the crew was ready. At 3:45 a.m. local time, two SM-6s roared out of the vertical launch cells in a flash of fire and thunder. Traveling at Mach 3.5, they crossed several hundred miles in just 6 minutes. The Houthis' air defenses proved useless. The SM-6s glided in and smashed directly into the SA-6 launcher. Signals intercepts later confirmed total destruction of the site and the elimination of 8 Houthi operators.